sukhinah sarve santu niramayah sarve bhadrani paschyantu ma kaschit dukkha bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Up till now, you have been coming along with me in understanding that Jivatma is one and the same as Paramatman. Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyama, unity is the essential, fundamental truth taught by Advaita Vedanta, which is essentially, in simple English sense, the Sanskrit is that you and God are one. Now that's interesting. Because everything that is splendid, wonderful, and perfect we have attributed to God. And here I am feeling quite the opposite. Also, what do you mean God? How do you define God? Does God even exist? Says the atheist. Do I have enough knowledge and know about to even answer this question and attend to its intricacies, or should I just leave it alone, says the agnostic. And the atheist and agnostic phenomena is not new to the modern world alone. Even in ancient India, we had the atheists. We had a whole school of philosophers who were very proud to be atheists, and they were the Charvaks. And they said, this is it, this is the only life, and eat ghee and make merry. Because ghee was considered as a very, supremacy, like you have your caviar, So there was no limit. It was a one life, and it's occurred, and let's live it up. And it was a phenomenon. This is not a moral universe. This is not, our actions don't really matter. Pleasure is what you need. And strangely, we find the Charvak echoes in the modern world today. And then agnostics, who don't say there is God or not God, but they say we will never know. We shall never know because we are not in a position to know. It was also not new to the Vedic India, to the Hindu philosophies. We have a very famous personality. I don't remember the last name, but the first name is not hard to remember because the first name of this philosopher is Sanjaya. And also in the Nasadya hymn in the Rigveda, it questions about who was there before there was creation. And then it ends with this profound contemplation. Perhaps we shall never know. And then there is, apart from the atheists and the agnostics, we have the scientist who is feeling quite frustrated with our beloved religious heads, our gods, and our creationist theories. Then we have, religious fundamentalists from different religions saying, the world and I were created by my God, not yours. So, friends, we have embarked upon the hottest topic from the Vedic times to the 21st century, which has caused murders, stirred violence, and entered like an existential doubt in the most devoted of being, busy praying in their version of the God and having this sneaky silent thought, what if there is no God? And it's just me and my problems. Ever been there? And then everything is ruined. Your altar, your ritual, your belief systems, your festival, your ancestry, everything. Because the doubt has emerged. Because you've not seen, felt, experienced and heard conclusively if there is God. I bow to these sages which clarified the concept of God to me, and for anybody who patiently listens to these teachings which are meant for universal understanding. And it set me free in my constant love affair with God. And I saw God everywhere, in everything, and I behold it every day in me. And this is no hokey pokey mysticism where one person is an avatar and everybody else is a wannabe. This is everybody experiences the truth of God when we first stop to define God. Rather than answering if there is a God, because then the Christian will say, yes, he lives in the church. And the Muslim will say, what are you talking about? He lives in the mosque. And there you go. We cannot go further. So first let's define God as per Advaita Vedanta. And then see what Advaita Vedanta has to say about this. So, what are the Ishvara Lakshanam? What are the features? Who is God? Let us define God. And our Shastra, Advaita Vedanta says, God is Chaitanyam. Chaitanyam is equivalent to, in the English language, to the word consciousness. God is Chaitanya Swarupaha. God is Jnana Rupaha, knowledge, absolute complete knowledge. God is Vijnana Rupaha. God is Prajna. God is Chiddarupaha. So my awareness, my consciousness, and this consciousness principle is equal to God. So says the Shastra of Advaita Vedanta. Now, what exactly is meant by Chaitanyam or consciousness should be the logical next question. What is this? Is this a person? Hindu, Muslim or Christian or Jew? What is this Chaitanya? What are we talking about? So this consciousness is that principle by which we can experience this entire world, each other and our own self. That principle is consciousness. So our Upanishads, our texts define and glorify this consciousness, because of which I am able to glorify this consciousness. Consciousness is that by which I can ask what is consciousness and I can receive an answer and process it. So, to such a person, if we say that what is the proof of consciousness, it is an invalid question. For example, there is a camera in front of me. I have to validate the camera by saying it exists so it is dependent upon me. But to know that I am existent, I do not need proof. Do you need proof for your existence? You do not. This awareness, this ability to be sentient is what is consciousness. So, if God is equal to consciousness, then am I ever away from consciousness? My every act of seeing, every act of smelling, every act of tasting, every act of touching, every act of feeling, every experience of emoting, every imagination, every ripple of ideas, every flight of fantasy, every burst of motherliness or fatherliness, every act of forgiveness, every dance of anger, every recollection of memory, every projection into future is nothing but an experience of God. This definition of God, Chaitanya or consciousness, that the Upanishads, the source texts of Advaita Vedanta provide, itself proves that God is existent. The whole conflict between spirituality and science occurred when we defined God as this one person who lives here in Vishnu Loka, Shiva Loka, Brahma Loka, Jesus Loka, Guru Nanak Loka, Buddha Loka, and that person alone when they become our God, and they have a place, and I will come to it with great respect. But when Vedanta pronounced that consciousness is all there is, and it is not merely an adjective but almost like a noun, it's a complete existence unto itself. It is Satchitananda. It is the ultimate truth because consciousness does not change with time, past, present, future, sleeping, awake, dreaming, young, old age, changing the body suit at death, but eternalness of the consciousness is there. That which is eternally Shashvat, always there, undisturbed, Shantaha, Asangaha, never attached. It seems to be dwelling in my body and yet it is outside the body. It activates, but it is not like attached or stuck to it. This consciousness, science can begin to accept as there is a field that is larger and beyond and transcendent, which is God. And that is why in the previous satsangas, when I read you notes from not one but very noble laureates who talk about Advaita Vedanta, they were not becoming mystical or suddenly falling at the feet of the Hindu sages to say, Master, save me. This was something they could accept, digest, and it made sense. Common sense. This wonderful definition of God, which we will continue exploring, Chaitanyam Sarupaha, Asangaha Anantaha, which means infinite. All matter is subject to laws of matter, of space and time. No matter how wonderful an entity in matter, everything has aged, in your experience. Time does a number on matter, and so does space. Matter becomes limited and cannot violate material laws. However, consciousness, which is our in this same God, when it is in the total, known as Brahman, when it is in the individual, it is known as Atman. So my real self is Atman, universal self is Brahman. This consciousness is Ananta, means it cannot be limited by time and space and your laws. Your laws, the material laws, can puncture the body, bleed it and disturb it, thicken it and thin it, dry it and make it congested and saturated with mucus. But none of this matter-based changes can even touch the true self of you, the God in you, which is consciousness. And when we begin leading our life from that knowledge, we have a whole different car that we are driving. We find, have you ever done that? You are driving your car for many, many years, and then you find hidden buttons. I just had that simile come to me. That is Advaita Vedanta. Because you thought you were this limited driver. But have you seen that movie, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Yes.
So for the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang experience in this body, we have to understand God. Because this God thing is a great advantage once we figure it out. We should sort it out, if there is a God or not, and what's my relationship with God. That single most important relationship makes me who I am today. Not my relationship with my loved ones, not my relationships with my colleagues, not my relationships with the people and friends, but my relationship with God through me, which is an essence of that God. It's a single most pivotal relationship. It is the focus of Advaita Vedanta. It is the focus of saying, know you by knowing God, and live therefore afterwards ever in that glorious way. But all the confusions come to us. Which God? What God? Have I sinned? Am I outside the kingdom? In the kingdom? Am I on the path? Outside the path? Should I convert to Hinduism? Should I stay in this religion? Calm down. Stay where you are. Says Advaita Vedanta, there is a place for religion. It gives us great richness in our religious life. But know God to be the closest within you. This moment you are listening, you are experiencing some freedom because you know what is freedom. Now go ahead and experience something that you don't know. You cannot. Consciousness is complete and it allows you to have complete experiences. So every experience is due to consciousness and it is a God experience. And therefore, the definition of Advaita Vedanta of God as Chaitanya is unique and sets many matters to rest. Then what is the nature of this Chaitanya? I have already mentioned what is the Swarupa. It is non-material. It has nothing to do with matter. It is beyond all given matter, and yet the way the matter is dependent upon it, and from time to time matter becomes sentient due to it. When consciousness is no longer connecting to a previously living body, it becomes inert. Just matter. Hang it on the tree so that the birds can have a feast. I ate many birds in my lifetime. Now you can eat me. Stick me under the soil, this body. I have eaten crops from this land. Now let me feed the crops. Burn me. Burn this body. Not me. Burn the body. Let it become really fine. Let it become like the air, the dust. Let matter join matter. And where is consciousness? Consciousness never dies. It is eternal. It was only associated with matter, so that matter seemed to be alive. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. It is the one truth. It is consciousness, and it is eternal and infinite. This is God. When it dwells in me, I experience this little bit of ego, I can do it. I can push that. I can solve this problem. I can bring global peace. I can take over the nations, wear forth this little bit of power. And then when difficulty, God, please save me. So who is that macro power? That macro power we call Brahman, the God. Now, Asanga, always transcendental, Ananta, never limited, Shuddham, always pure. This God is the concept. Then the Indian students here, the Hindu students may ask, what about Brahma? Huh? What about Vishnu? What about Shiva? And some other gods can be named. What about them? Now we have created this Chaitanya as another god. Now I have to choose. No. Beauty of Advaita Vedanta. When I start meditating on this ultimate supreme God, and I see it everywhere, in the blooming daffodils, in the hibiscus, in the little beetle bug, in the living things it is even more expressive, and in the inert it is lying there, gently beckoning and becoming my path. It's just me everywhere. When I eat, I see me in the food, I see the eater, I see the fire, everything with same consciousness. In every act, then who is my enemy? And who is different from me? And how limited can I be? And my whole paradigm starts changing. But yet, when I try to meditate, I do not find anything. Because it has no form, no name. It is an invisible, non-material God. This Mukhya Ishvara, Ishvara is the word for God in Sanskrit. This main supreme God is the ideal, it is the principle, it is what we Advaita Vedantins try to discover. We don't have to go anywhere, or we can go anywhere. And we will still close our eyes or look into the eyes of some child, some cow, nature, something, and just have an experience of the self everywhere. And that is why even when we are hurting someone or strangling someone and we see that person's eyes, perhaps I have not had an experience, but I can imagine what has to have happened to Lady Macbeth, that she had to wash her hands constantly after killing the king. She had all the justifications for doing it, and her husband got the crown, but she became insane washing her hands, because we cannot commit crime against the same self which is God. We can convince the world, we can hide the crime, and similarly we cannot stop the joy from emerging when we begin to live in a harmonious way with everyone, including our enemies. Why? Because more of the self and the God experience for us, like a buffet, is open. However, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, what is this? So, our Shastra says that You cannot have Ishvara darshan or a prapti of Brahman. If you say, Brahman, how do you look? How can I do sadhana on you? How can I focus on you? Can you quickly give me a symbol so that I'm about to lose my reality and say, you are non-godly, I am godly, he is godly, you are not godly. Can you come as a symbol in my mind? But Brahman cannot have a symbol. So a more practical and limited and conformed for our human faculty version of the same Brahman Ishvara is known as Gauna Ishvara. This Gauna Ishvara is someone that each one of us can subscribe to. This Gauna Ishvara has a location somewhere in the stars. Brahma is in Brahma Loka, Vishnu is in Vishnu Loka, Shiva is in Shiva Loka, and I suppose some other gods are in the heavens where the clouds are there and the harps are there, and to each their own fantasy. A collective fantasy and an individual fantasy. But that fantasy is necessary because we begin to connect with the highest principle through this Gauna Ishvara. So in the Vedanta tradition, in the ancient India, what these Hindu sages did, they said, that's really interesting. There is only one Chaitanya, Mega Atma. There is only one divine principle expressing itself as the many. Then why limit the number of gods? Why? Why say there is only these many gods and you have to worship them in this way? Why? Why not have 84 crore, 840 million Gauna Ishvara? Because according to our Shastra, there are 840 yonis or wombs in which consciousness can take birth and express itself. Look at the expanse of godliness. Not one species, not one womb was left out from being divine. You like it? Nothing was outside the purview. And so we have 84 crore, and if I am calculating correctly, 840 million gods, which have then been categorized in three broad categories of Brahma, the creator, Vishnu, the maintainer, and Shiva, the destroyer. Because in Brahman, in this consciousness, we see birth, maintenance, and dissolution. Emergence, life, dissolution. Emergence, manifestation, not manifestation. So, therefore, these gods are very important. Without these gods, at least India, which has a festival every day for one of these gods, would be a very boring place to tour through. In fact, every village has its own god. Mandaji, do you agree? Homes have their own gods with no justification to anybody else. And other religions may go or not to the temple, but you will find an ordinary Hindu visiting every church and mosque. Because they say, more Gauna Ishvara. Oh, I really like Brahman in the form of the Guru Granth Sahib, in the form of the Holy Bible. Are you understanding? I am trying to explain the psychology. I am not trying to say the supremacy of this or that. Many a times the Indian nation has been explained as the giver of non-violence, right? Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in the Rigveda, the whole world is our family. Samani mantra samati samanaha. Let us have common prayers. Thousands of years ago it is mentioned, wherefore this kind of knowledge comes from when the world was busy dividing turfs and territories for God. And the reason for that is that their basic ethos ethos was that there is only one Chaitanyam Swarupaha God, this consciousness, and you, the living one, is a sentient expression of this consciousness, an active expression, a beautiful expression of this consciousness, and the inert nature is a passive expression of that same consciousness. So this knowledge allowed for the Gauna Ishvara or the physical God in any form to be liked by the Shastras. And if you just look at, for example, the goddess culture in India, there is the goddess of music and arts, Saraswati, who's wearing a white sari and seems to be a yogini. And then there is, you turn around and the goddess becomes Lakshmi, who is representing Brahman's feature of abundance. And there is no conflict. And then you move to Kali, which shows a dharmic rage and destroyer of the wrongdoing. Then you have Kumari, the young girl, the innocent one. You have so many goddesses. If somebody tries to put them together and say, what are you trying to get at? The sages will laugh and say, that's it, don't get at. Don't try to have darshan of this god. You might end up having an hallucination. Enjoy this goddess. Decorate her to your heart's quality, desire. Build huge temples with ethically earned money. And when you walk into a church, see the same goddess in Jesus. So many people will say, we know that they are all relatives. People talk like that, village people. And there is a goddess in India every few miles. This is the area of this goddess. This is the area of that goddess. But then, who is God? There is only one God. Because the human imagination needs something saguna with qualities. But reality is nirguna. No quality can limit God. If we say God is yellow with purple hair, we're stuck with that God. We may not want to do that when hairstyle colors change. We want a God that can be purple haired if you want, yellow haired if you want, aquiline nose if you want, and snub nose if you want. Dancing with skulls or draped in a beautiful, sophisticated white sari. You have your wish and then fall in love with that God and let that God open the gateway to the God within you. And literally at the time of prayer, we are taught in the Gurukul, now take the God from within and look at it outside and pray to it. And after you have done all the 16 steps of worship, re-enter the God into your heart, because it dwells nowhere, very far, but within you. This expression of God allowed for me personally to be quite at comfort with the altar of my choice, and yet remembering and not being caught up in the conflict of gods, between science and God, and wondering if I am a partaker of the nectar of God or not. I am that. Aham Brahmasmi. I am God. It ended with that. But how dare we say that? Who is that? Is that the body? Is that the mind declaring it? No. It is the Chaitanyam within that my mind starts recognizing to say, I have a part of me that is no less than God, I tell you. I want to be angry with this person and punish this person, and I find that I'm holding this person's head and saying everything will be okay. Have you seen that? I thought I am broken and depressed, and then given half a chance, I became the most enlightened and dynamic, active person. This potential within you cannot be limited by your current experiences and belief sets, says Advaita Vedanta. The very fact that your true self is consciousness, and consciousness can be anything and yet be transcendent to that. And this God of all experiences which is the truth and remains valid for all cultures, all people, all times. It was before we took birth and manifested as this person with this womb and this sex and this story, and it will remain after we disappear. This universe will also emerge, live, and collapse back. The collapsing and emerging universes, the big bangs, the big bangs outside in the universe and the big bangs inside in the subtle universes. When they all settle down, all that remains is consciousness, ever unchanged, ever pure, ever blissful, and ever potent, ever full. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Shanti, Shanti. With this we end.